All right, my favorite people, Sterling White here, and I'm back at it again with another topic for you. Actually had to get inside because the sun is shining and I could actually barely see. And today's topic is going to be on how I went from living in welfare and Section 8 housing, almost losing my life at 5 years old, to owning just under 500 units. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned until the very end to be able to get these insights. First and foremost, I want to share a story within a story, similar to Inception, a dream within a dream. And so I'm learning Spanish. I go to my barber who's Hispanic, and I say, "¿Qué tal, mi hombre?" Which I was saying, "What's up, my man?" Just like that. And he said, "Nah, that doesn't actually translate to Spanish. That actually means that you're my man." Like, you guys get where I'm going with that. So that's one of the things, is English does not transfer to Spanish, and things in Spanish do not transfer that easy. But let's go ahead and get back to the story. And so many of you know my upbringing, but if you're just now coming across me, is born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the not so good parts of the city where you never knew that you were actually going to make it the next day. And statistically, I actually should not be holding this phone and actually talking to you and where I'm actually at in my life's journey, but ended up making out of that environment. And I remember that I have a fraternal twin brother, and at one point we were just sitting down at the kitchen table. It was one of those Fisher Price multicolored ones, about 5 years old. And then we're eating, we get done, we go upstairs, bullet comes right through the back patio where we were sitting. And just fast forward, how I ended up getting into real estate was I was in college and doing that whole thing, and ended up dropping out at a later point. That's another story in itself. But I was really just following the masses at that point that says, in order to make it in life, you've got to get an education. But for some reason, it just really didn't sit well with me. And just one of the summers while I was in college, my roommate's dad owned a construction company, saw I had some free time, and that's how I was able to get my foot in the door. And at this point, this is where I actually fell in love with real estate, because I enjoyed seeing a project before and then working on it and then seeing the after effects. So that was one of the things I really enjoyed. But I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that really hit a light bulb for me, that in order to get rich and wealthy, that people that got to that point did not get that way by being laborers. And they were actually investors. And then that's when I was starting to look into investing. But here's the key, is I didn't have any money, and I actually had negative funds in my bank account when I first started, because I was just not financially smart, had quite a bit of credit card debt, and my credit score wouldn't even register when you would pull it. So I had these things that were, you would say, limiting me, but I didn't look at it as limiting. I just said, okay, it's just a problem to be solved. And so I start to go out into the universe, and I know I'm going fugazi, woo, wow, where's he going, talking about the universe. But I tell you, this works when you really put that idea out there. And I started training at this CrossFit gym because I was training for a Guinness World Record, which for the world's fastest fireman carry mile. That's another story in itself too. But at this place is where I ended up meeting my mentor. Formed a relationship with this person in particular. Never even thought they would be my mentor, but just for some reason, is I started on this path of self-improvement, and it talked about just putting yourself out there and putting yourself in the right places, and then also just having a goal. And my goal was getting that first deal in real estate. So formed a relationship with this individual. And at one point, I asked them, "Hey, let's go out to Subway." And that's when I approached and said, "Hey, how can I help you in your business? Here's the kicker. You don't have to pay me anything." And I saw this person was actually where I wanted to be. So that's why I was willing to make that sacrifice. And at that same time is that I had very low overhead. I was actually living in my friend's den. So I was able to actually do this for free. And of course, I helped around as a way to be able to live there. And he was just a great person. Shout out to you, David. And I remember every morning he had these two terriers and they always pooped in my room. And interesting story is that they both had the name Toby and one of the dogs happened to be black. I'm not sure if he was going that way. I'm not getting into racing or anything, but back to the story now. So I started working for this this individual multiple months now, my mentor Will. And he says that, okay, well, I've got apartments now. I actually want to start buying single families. There we go. I was also looking to get my foot in the door and start with single families as well. And that was the value exchange. And that's one thing I always say is that leading with value versus trying to see how you can take. I was working for this person free up until that point. So then it's the time to start to find the deals. So I start to do handwritten letters. I'm doing the bandit signs, and I'm going out to networking events. And finally I meet this person that has a house for sale, and just fast forward through it. The purchase price was $25,000. I didn't have that money. And then the rehab was $25,000. I didn't have that money as well, but ended up partnering with someone, being my mentor, who funded the purchase price as well as the rehab. And then this is when I got the school of hard knocks on the job. Was, all right, Sterling, we got the deal now. Go figure everything else out. And that was, I had to manage the transaction with the title company. I had to do the leasing, do the property management. So all these different things, I ended up having to jump in, and that's how I was able to get real hands-on experience. And then right after that, bought the house right across the street. And it was just a lot of sacrifice and just putting in the work day in and day out. And then right after that, I ended up meeting my partner after that, who we ended up, this was the company that started and ended up scaling to 150 single families and then scaling to just under 500 units. And this person I actually met at a real estate event. And this is why it's key to just put yourself out there, is what I learned, because you just never know who you'll meet. And so he was on stage talking about himself. Shout out to you, Jacob. And so he was up on stage telling his story. And I said, for some reason, I've got to work with this guy. And right after he got off stage, he went to the restroom. I followed him to the restroom. Yes, I followed him to the restroom. And I said, hey, let's start working together. And we exchanged contact information. He said, yeah, this is the office I work out of. And the very next day I was in that office and we started working together. And this is one of those things, is that when you're looking for partners, is instead of just jumping right into bed with them, it's just similar to dating. Is you've got a dating phase and then you decide to get married or do whatever else you decide to do in that relationship. But it was the same with that. We started work with each other. We enjoyed each other's company. We're good friends. We did some deals, and then we started our venture. But I'll tell you, there's those first couple of years when we were doing buying single families and we were doing the buy and hold model, it took time. The first 2 years, or I would say year and a half, was all startup mode. And then that's when the snowball started to come into play, where we first started with friends and family. So we would go out, buy a property for $30,000, put an additional 20 into it. It would be all in, let's say $50,000, and rent it for $800. And then we would buy 10 of those. And then we would go to outside investors. And that was through my marketing efforts, being on Bigger Pockets, being on podcasts. So brought in these outside investors to cash out our original investors, which is our friends and family. And then we did it all over again. So that's how we were able to snowball and grow so quickly. But it all came down to really just having a team. And then the partner, Jacob, is we really complemented each other's weaknesses. That way we weren't overlapping so much in the same skill sets and everything. So that was another lesson that I ended up learning. And then shortly after that, we got up to 150 single families, and we decided, man, this is a lot. Having that many roofs, one, and then that many transactions, because a lot of these deals that were bought were a lot of one-offs. Maybe if we were lucky, we would get a package of 3, a package of 2, but a lot of them were just one-off deals. So from that, we took a step back and said, okay, what model is more scalable? And ding, 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 that's when multifamily came into place. And so now the decision was made, to shift to multifamily. And from that, it was okay. Now let's answer the question: how do we do it? Versus looking at it, well, there's no way that we can be able to shift. We got to stay on single families. And this was one thing that really helped me. Is in my early 20s was I started on this path of self-improvement, and that helped me overcome a lot of limiting beliefs that most people do have. And I really had to rewire my way of thinking because I had a lot of just limiting beliefs that were drowned in me just through my upbringing. Because my mother did single mother. She did the best she could, but she used the information. She gave me that information that got her to that point, which was not where I wanted to be. Love my mother to death. So from there, decision was made, shift to multifamily. Okay, now how do we find them? So went the on-market approach, and this is in 2017, going through brokers. However, is through the multiple months in doing this, it was very on fire with the level of competition. And so people were bidding 15-20% more than what we could do. And then from that is, okay, well, now what? Okay, let's figure out another way. And then that's when the off-market strategy ended up coming to play. And now it's okay, now how do we get in touch with these owners? So always looking at it as a problem to be solved. And that's what entrepreneurship is about, is what my personal experience share from that. And so now looked at it, said, okay, now how? And let's do cold calling. Okay, next step, let's do driving for dollars. So found a property that ended up needing work. And then from there, pulled the public records, because all this is public information. Reached out, used my cell phone and said, hey, looking to buy your property, would you be open to selling? And boom, yes, they just happen to be open to selling. Of course, this was not the first one. I just want to make that disclaimer. The first call I ever made, there was plenty calls before that, but then this one ended up sticking, of course. So and just to fast forward, the next deal was also found through going the same strategy, off market, going direct to owner, all starting with a cold call. And through this entire way of inquiring these deals, it was just a simple syndication that was used from the track record of the single family side of things, and then being able to leverage those investors on the multifamily. So all in all, a lot of hard work and sacrifice that was involved. And just there's a team effort. And what really helped is just finding people who complement your weaknesses and just being aware of your weaknesses, and then putting the right people on your team when it comes to that. Second is being willing to put in the work, because it's not easy. As glamorous as the social media age makes things out to be, where you see that, oh, they just acquired that deal on their first try or whatever, or overnight success. No, it was not an overnight success. Many of the times there's actually a lot of work that led up to that success that you do have. The next point I want to mention is that it takes belief. And that's why it starts with mindset. Out of everything I shared with you, some of the tactics, the strategies that I briefly touched on, is that if you don't have the right mindset, then none of that I shared with you actually matters, because you'll figure out a way to actually talk yourself out of it. So that's the share I have for you all on how I was able to go from welfare to where I am now. And of course, there's still so much growth that I have. And I do just want to say I appreciate you, each and every month, everyone who was on here. I'm just someone who's on this earth, just sharing my story, and hopes that it inspire others and show you what is really possible out there. As mentioned, statistically, me sitting where I'm at and sharing this story with you should not be happening. My brother, who we're a prime example and grew up in the same environment, we can be looked at as test subjects, and he took a completely different path in life, the one that I was actually taking that path. So if I can share this story, one, to inspire others, but also find someone who is also taking that similar path and be able to pull them out of it, that's one of my big goals that I have. So I appreciate you all. Keep being awesome. And if there's any way I can continually help, this is what I'll continue to do. Thank you so much.